Let's see. Okay, I assume we are live, and thank you all for coming. Hi, everybody. Yeah, nice room. And all those who are out there. I've been, just did the darshan, and now I'm going to do some live teaching. Yeah, and I want to focus on some things that I need to help everybody with. And some of those things are working. Yeah, okay. Some of those things are based on helping people to gain faith as to what's going on in the world, and how best the world is actually way beyond good. Things have changed, and they've changed in very specific ways, in very specific timings that have to do with saving the planet, and moving the planet out of people who just don't care. People who are too busy in their daily lives, or too busy in their emotions, or their spiritual quests, or all those things that go on in a person aren't really the things that are suffering and needing change in the world. Those things, you have to be really empathetic, and you have to be very compassionate, and you have to be enlightened, to be able to make a difference. So I spent my life focusing on making very strong differences in the world in cycles of time, like during the hippie movement and during the period when people were killing politicians in the 60s. I was incarnated. I was about 11 years old then. And during the time that we were supposed to go into a nuclear war, and Cuba was right there with nuclear bombs, and everything was crazy. And then our president gets shot in the head, and his brother gets shot. Martin Luther King gets shot, and people go rioting in the street. And it's a tough year, for 10 years, throughout those 60s. And during that time, I'm extremely busy to heal that. And I know exactly what needs to be done to heal it. There has to be the externalization of Christ. Not because no one's looking. No one goes to church and says, he's probably going to show up any day now. We better really make some changes in this world, or he's going to be very upset with us. We're going to be way lagging behind. What if he was to show up? Nothing like that is going on. No movies are being made. Nothing is being implied to that. We only have, like Star Wars and Star Trek and extraterrestrial contacts, ETs. Everything to do with fantasy and illusion and delusion and taking people off the course. Because you never hear in any one of those shows, Jesus Christ came back and saved us all. And they're deep into the year 3000, in Star Wars, and then Star Trek, they're 2700, whatever, and still no Jesus. And if you watch the shows, they imply that was just one of our phases we went through when we were thinking about things like that. And Star Trek comes across demigods and things like that, and people are just going, oh, yeah. So it goes on. And no one is focused on the reality. But there is a group inside of humanity that is aware of the reality, and they're very fixed on the benefit that comes from the reality of the avatar, the incarnation of the avatar, and the benefits that we can go through. So they come to my house when I'm 9 years old, and make that known to me, make that known to my parents, make it known to the world. Because they had to sit in a large group, and they had to go through an enormous amount of testing and psychic awareness and looking and watching me, and at least for a few years, and seeing that I was just the most awesome, kindest, holiest being walking around, And even though people were violent around me, even though it was a horrible, hard time, everybody smoking, everybody drinking, everybody hurting everybody, But I was the only one who turned against all of it, every single bit of it. I wouldn't even hunt, and I was an American Indian. My father was deeply embarrassed Or the fact that his son doesn't hunt. What kind of man is that going to turn out to be? Yeah. Yeah, and that was in everybody. Those kind of prejudices were put on everyone. So I was like in a heavy state having that going on. Yeah, but at the same time, I am in another world. Yeah, I have masters of wisdom showing up in my house, and they're arguing with my parents, and they're making it really, really clear for over 2 hours that I'm going to save the world. Not just sit there on a seat and radiate light, but I'm going to be busy inventing and creating visions after I make an invention and pass it to someone else and not make any money for it. Yet everybody else gets billionaires everywhere. Yeah, just by me being hanging out, creating my visions and manifesting them inside of people. By me going through all the hard work of actually incorporating myself with these people. Yeah, so by 2005, humanity got into a situation to where they had electric cars. And they were on the planet up to around 2000 to 2002. And then they started taking them back. Yeah, and they started crushing them. And it just freaked people out. Where's our future? We're supposed to have flying cars by now. We're supposed to be sitting on Mars and sitting on the moon and in highly, auspicious levels of being, But our cars are being crushed. Our electric cars are being crushed. That means our hope is being crushed. And it seems as though no one cares. Yeah. Movie comes out who killed the electric car. And all it did was just document the fact that it got crushed. Yeah. Nothing more could be said, because they're depending on industries to build these cars. Ford to come up and start building electric cars. GM start building electric cars. Honda, Toyota start building electric cars. Come on. And that's really not how it works. So I decided I would build an electric car. I opened up an electric car company. Yeah. And I started gathering people in the United States who knows how to build electric cars. And we found out most of the chassis are in China because they already have electric cars, and they've had electric cars for quite a while. And they just don't know how to get the batteries right because they're still on lead acid batteries. We can only get 45 to 60, 70 miles tops. And if you push on the, on the throttle, very slowly do you go forward because it's really not a lot of amps, not a lot of power in those batteries. And they don't really, when you push on it, you don't go woof immediately because it's not lithium. So we had a few years to go. But all we needed was someone like me in there going, nah, that won't work, nah, that won't work, nah, that won't work, nah, that won't work. This will work. This will work. Okay, let's try hybrid batteries. Let's try doing batteries in a new way. Let's look for new batteries, yeah? And slowly but surely, my influence got into Toyota. I bought a Toyota RAV4 EV. I souped it up and I paid over $65,000 for it, because it was just one of those things you do on eBay. And in the process, it got me in the news. And here everybody's destroyed the electric cars, but here's one man who has an electric car, and he paid $65,000 for it. And you can get 2 Hummers for that. That's what the news was about. They wanted to humiliate me and say, don't you know you can get 2 Hummers for the price of this car? Don't you know you can only get about 60 miles in that car? You can't really go very far. You can't go very fast. I said, well, actually, I get about 90 miles, and actually, I can go very fast, 70 miles an hour. I can get on freeways. It's a darn good car, and, we're going to continue this. We're going to have more electric cars. They're going to continue coming. And it was that very company, Toyota, that got with Elon Musk because this happened. And they went, we got to keep our RAV4 going. So they got with Elon Musk and they said, I'll tell you what, we'll do Mooney. We have this great big, beautiful industrial complex for building cars. No one can use it because it's too big. We can't use it. We own it. But we can't use it. Because we don't have that much to build in it. We're thinking about building an electric car. And they said, okay, we'll supply the electric motor system. It's completely Tesla inside this new RAV4 that comes out. Yeah, so the two companies get together in order to keep the RAV4 going. Because I showed that it was something financially that would work. Yeah. So that built up in the mind of Elon Musk, we need a sedan. We need to start working on a common car that we can get out there right away. So he starts designing two cars, a Model 3 and a Model S. I've already got a down payment down for his little hot rod, because it's the first one you can buy anywhere. Yeah, and I go there and drive it, and I'm too tall. Yeah, so I get to put down a bid for their very first car. And I sell off my electric car company. Yeah, just completely let it go. Just completely let it go. Yeah, and because we now have the industry that we need in order to get this going. Yeah, so every single thing, all the people who bought the electric car, from Tesla, their money went into building the next electric car. Yeah, and that's not going to happen in Ford. That's not going to happen in GM. Yeah, so there's an incentive within the new group of world servers to carry out these projects. Yeah, and nothing's going to get crushed. All these kind of things. Yeah. So helping to move and motivate the process of the planet to continue rather than fall back in desperation. We're never going to have an electric car. We'll never have a car driving itself. We'll never have a car flying. We'll never have any of those things. But now that we're stepping in the year 2020, by the year 2025, we'll have flying cars. Yeah. And they'll be available by the year 2030 easily within large numbers. Right now, we have electric cars. And we have a large number of electric cars coming out in this year and next year. Yeah, better get myself back on the camera. There, hi. Yeah, so all those electric cars are what's coming through from the future. Yeah, they're already in my group. They're already in our vision. They're already in the plan. We're working on them right now. Yeah, we have flying, look like airplanes. They look like drones, but we actually put a person sitting in it, and we take them back and forth to airports, or we take them back and forth as an Uber. Or a Tesla that drives itself. You don't have to buy a Tesla next year. All you have to do is pay $200. And you get the right to contact Tesla, put in your app and say, I need a car at this address. It shows up either with the driver or on autopilot. You don't have to pay insurance. You don't have to pay any of that stuff. You don't have to buy the car, but you got a car. And it's beginning of the share program. Yeah. It's just the beginning. Yeah. But it's already in the group. We already have it planned out. This is the way it's going to be. Within 10 years, this is how we're going to go. No one's manipulating anybody because it's not something to do with making money. Yeah. It's something to do with doing the right thing. And the opportunities that come up at this point in time with computers and advancements of batteries and all the things that we could do as people running off and competing against each other, we're now doing through overshadowing. So there's an extreme quickening going on, even to the point of going into space, being able to deal with our communication level of, how we deal with cellular phones or how we deal with internet. Yeah, we pay a lot of money now. For cable, we pay a lot of money now. For our internet phones, we pay a lot of money, to watch TV. Yeah, but there soon is going to be this new grid that's going to be going over the planet. And it's a whole thousands of satellites that are very, very small. Yeah, have their own little pulsed ion engine. Yeah, that's very futuristic, but they do exist. Because in this small form, we can make them to do the job they need to do. And they'll last forever. Because they're pulsed ion energy. Just... And in space, it doesn't take much to make something move. Yeah? So this is manifested out of the solar. Yeah? So these little things flying around, all connected to each other by laser. A grid encircling the entire planet. Yeah, that'll all be done by the year 2025. And then all of us will have a direct contact with that satellite. Yeah, no matter where we're at on the planet, for pennies, we'll communicate at the highest level, fastest level, up and down. Yeah, and that'll include our telephone. It'll include everything we watch on TV, everything that we do on the internet, all on one line, and one maybe $10 a month fee. Yeah, rather than 30 fees for all the different creeps that'll get you. You know, you want to go upgrade, you want to do that, you want to do this, you want to do that. Yeah, it's going to become more sharing. Yeah, because we're opening up an envelope where, you know, okay, there's corruption going on, but guess what? We're finding out, and we're behind your back, and we're coming down. Yeah, everybody's an angel. Yeah, so everybody's being judged, and in the process, everybody is transformed. Yeah. It may be the asshole we're working on this year, but it's not going to be an asshole next year. That very same asshole will be working on someone else because they learned that they were an asshole. They have these characteristics. They look around, they see other people with the same characteristics and say, hey, you know, that's not right. I know exactly what you're going through. Does that make sense? Yeah? And the whole process is going to be changing so quickly. Yeah? I'm putting out things in now to help people understand that. Let's say you want to end this thing of being on the planet and working, you know, 2/3 of your life and then retire, yeah, and hope that that's gonna buy your house, you know, or get you a nest egg, you know, and it's got to be a big freaking nest egg if you're gonna live off that, you know, when you're 65. You know, but chances are, still in your head, you're wise enough to know you're probably going to die 5 years after that. So it's really not that much money you need. You know, if you live longer, well, you know, you'll do your best. But chances are, you're not going to go that long. Yeah, where I come from, that's not true. Yeah, you can live a very long time, and you should retire at around 30 to 40 years old, because those are the years of gaining skills and abilities, and you work your ass off during that period of time. Yeah, and the best you can do is you do that, but you also are very, very stingy with your money, and you hold on to it, and you hold on to it, and you maintain it, and you leverage it. Yeah, and you find that you can live in a tiny house. You do not need a big house with a big mortgage. Yeah, you can actually have something that is transportable, tiny house on wheels. You know, you can have a van and live in a tiny house. You know, you can change how it is and what it is that's costing us, making us do that job. Does it make sense? Yeah? Yeah, and that's not something we have yet. You know, most people are just going, I got to get to college, I got to eat with this hand, I got to do all these characteristic things that we're built to do in order to fail. Because it's Lucifer. Lucifer's interested in the nicky-nacky little things. Which hand are you eating from? Yeah? But God is spontaneous. Yeah? God don't want you to have those habits. God wants you to know that it's good to eat with your hands. All your hands, all your fingers. Yeah? Yeah? There's nothing wrong with getting to a plate and scouring down without a utensil. Yeah? Totally nothing wrong with it. Yeah? But if you're not clear enough yourself, you know, you have all these inhibited vices. And then that becomes prejudice. And nobody can meet that standard. And they're all lower, crude, barbarian people. You know, that you gotta let go of those things because they create prejudice. Yeah? Yeah, and all that gets released when you let go of money. And when you're on the wrong wheel, your only thing is to make as much money as you can to survive in a world that costs so much, to have a tiny apartment, with a really shitty landlord, and a really terrible job, with 4 jobs, not just one, and you're doing your best because the cost of living is far more than what you're making, Well, we're the ones, humanity is the ones that has to make the change. We have to take consciousness and receive consciousness, and from consciousness, you will be given answers. Because in this world of Lucifer, you're only taught which hand to eat with. How to become prejudiced or biased, what clothes to wear, whether or not you wear a tie, whether or not guys are looking a certain way, their hair's all as it should be, or are we to be less prejudiced, and we're that way, we actually help people become more natural in themselves, more free in themselves, So all those things are caught in this great big money thing. We have poverty, and we have so many houses that are seemingly worth so much. But who needs that many bedrooms? Who needs that big of a kitchen? Who needs 5 bathrooms? Who needs all that? Unless you got a lot of people. And there's someone for every room and someone for all the bathrooms and all these different things. But still there's efficiency ways to make that work out. You don't have to live in New York at the most expensive place. You can find living, in this world you can find a lot of living, a lot of economy just by being in service of communicating and education. Because we're a very illiterate group of humans. And in order to get out of this, we need wisdom. And people gain wisdom by their own life skills. By the time you're 30 to 40 years old, you've got a lot to share if you put your time in the right way. And all of a sudden, what you thought was just, well, I spend all my time woodworking, and I'm really good at that, and a lot of people like my cabinets and all that, but get on YouTube, man. Show people how to do that. Now you're making $80,000 a year. What the heck? And it just comes in. Only because you're sharing. And if you look at it, you'll see there really is this process that's going on if people move towards sharing. We just don't know what sharing means. Like, oh, should I give the shirt off my back? That's total sixth ray way of looking at it. Sharing is your wisdom, not your intellect, not I know something you don't know, but I'm sharing because this will make it easier for you to do it. I've already gone through this, whether it be cooking or anything. Every aspects of life. So there's a whole lot in the process in these next few years that people will be turning away from things like TV and things like, movies and things like, the regular entertainment, propaganda. And more people will be turning more toward spontaneous communication skills, like YouTube or things of that nature. Not Instagram or Facebook, but something actually is part of an expression that goes into what I call the fourth ray. And fourth ray is the entertainment area, but it's in the sharing and caring area of wisdom for education. The best way to be educated is over a video with sound and images and events that explain what's going on. Whether it be history or whether it be science, it could be very difficult if you just open up a book and you start reading it. But if you have it come in through a series of people who are extremely good at putting together this film that allows you to see it in ways that moves your emotions, moves your insight, help you see something that you would not have taken wholly. You would have to have memorized it because it didn't mean anything to you. But if it's shared like this, all of a sudden you find like-mindedness of what it's like to have been in that situation. Or does that make sense? You're developing empathy and compassion, and that allows you to receive the wisdom of another person's ability without, putting them up on a, pedestal. It doesn't make anybody into a movie star, doesn't make anybody into that. It's just sharing of wisdom. That's the new form of entertainment. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? And it's not Close Encounter of the Third kind of thing. Yeah? It's not sharing of delusions and illusions. Yeah? But it's true sharing of events that get clearly presented, and then that moves events in the world to be revealed. Then that allows people to look a little deeper, and they find things, whether it be archaeology, anthropology, sociology, technology, education, economics, all of it. The whole new group of world servers are the ones that dig into it, transform it into sharing. Does that make sense? That way it's not a political thing, it's not a judgment thing, it's just sharing the truth, unraveling the truth. And each one is specifically qualified to do that. Because here you got your educationalists, you got your politicians, you got this whole new group of world servers. And their only interest is serve. How do they serve? Wisdom. Yeah, they don't join into politics, they actually delve into politics and see what people are actually saying and doing. And cut through the thing and have politics start manifesting in the way it was first expressed. We the people. Yeah? Yeah? So everything, all this that I'm working with, everything that is moving is part of a series of cycles that comes into humanity. And, I'm incarnated and I go through the 50s, we go through the 60s, we go through the 70s, and the 80s and 90s, and the year 2000, now we're 2010, now we're going into 2020. That's a whole lot of cycles, if you think about it. And if you go back in time, you can actually see those cycles as revelations, as changes of time, changing in humanity. And when we get to 2020, this cycle that we're in, comes to a point to where revelation becomes an expression of thought form building. So I say something, I tell you all this kind of, I tell you that we're going to have cars that drive themselves. And I have to explain what that means. Because if you just say cars that drive themselves, then you're thinking, a robot sitting in the front seat, like they do on TV, like they do in movies, and that's very diluted. Why would we need a robot sitting in the front seat? Because you have a personality, you need that. But real reality is what comes in, and it would totally freak you out that there's nobody in the front seat, and the car is driving itself. That's way beyond. Because we have to get past this cultural process. It's cultural reform. We all hold a really strong bias. We can't get around what's true and be able to agree. So it takes about 10 years for it to come into us, for us to respond to it, to start to get used to it. And then we feel we have the free will, to actually make a choice now. Where in reality, we're being educated. We're not being programmed, not being manipulated, but we're freely being educated by highly enlightened beings that are visualizing and working very hard on making these real reality things take place. And as they slowly but surely come out, and you get to see them, like the cars 5 years, 10 years in advance, prototypes, or flying cars. 10 years ago we go, only 2 or 3. Then 5 years later, holy mackerel, there's 27 of them. And it includes motorcycles, flying motorcycles, come on, a flying, strap-on jacket, and you go flying around, I mean, come on, they're really doing this. When a board that you'll actually stand on, you go flying around on. It's true. They're doing it right now. And you don't even have to fly these things. It hovers down, it opens the door, you get in, you sit down, you put your briefcase down, you sit there, a nice little person talks to you that's not there in the room, tells you, are you ready to go? Yep, okay, let's go. We'll be there in 5 minutes. And And you're being flown there. And this is way ahead of what we're expecting to go on. Yeah? So cultural shock is what we have to go through. We have to make it through cultural shock. It's not like, there's a horrendous force keeping us from getting to this. But we're in a state of inertia, and nobody has vision. We see things a little bit in comic books and sci-fi, but true vision is true vision. To have real true vision is quite difficult. Yeah? So the influence of enlightenment does bring true vision. It brings group activity inside of collective consciousness of groups. So imagine, here we have computers are coming in, Apple computers coming on board. We're in 1977. Yeah? And parents are going, oh, I'm good with Pong, but I don't know about this computer in my house. What am I going to do with this thing? And their kid, who's only 9 years old, 10 years old, sitting there programming it, going, oh, wow. What are you doing? I'm programming it. What do you mean? Well, you got to program it before it'll work. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it's in a DOS form. Where are you from? Yeah. And if you study history, you'll find out geniuses have already been here for a long time, and they're the people who kill themselves. Yeah? Geniuses have been here for a long time, they're the people who kill themselves. Yeah? If you just study it, if you look at it, there's not a lot of study, 100 years ago, but we can go back a bit, in psychology, where we go back into the 50s and 30s and 40s where it was studied. And we find out that there are a lot of geniuses, but they got nothing to do. They may be a bookkeeper, which is so frustrated. They have vision. They're ready to work on a computer. They're ready to begin working with Tesla. They're, all these things that are part of a great group of minds that are actively moving forward on a large scale. Yeah, large scale. They've always been here, but they've got nothing to do. Yeah, they're on a farm. Geniuses come from farms, Does that make sense? They come out of people. And people don't expect to have a genius because they're expecting to have another, little farmer, But here comes, Bill Gates, here comes, and they're all very unique at the same age, doing very similar things, and all already similar to what they're going to be doing when they're 30. Because as a visionary, you're in a time loop. Yeah? Your future is impressing upon you. You're already seeing impressions of it. Groups of people are already moving into your life that come from the future. Yeah? Does that make sense? It's very dharma, very miraculous, powerful influences. Yeah? That's the new group of world servers. Yeah? So we see these kids, we've got computers, but we don't know how to use them, yet the kids can program them, So those kids become the programmers that we now work with Google and all the things that we have in the world. Those are the kids of those who were in the 60s, the hippies who had kids. Imagine them thinking that they're going to have this rock and roll star, genius who's going to run, like Bill Gates and, Steve Jobs, who was a hippie, lived in a commune, People looking at him didn't think, wow, yeah, you're going to be inventing the iPhone, They were geniuses, lots of them. Yeah. And now, because Christ is on the earth, and Christ is a freaking genius, we have something to do. My visions put out very high levels of mind for people to gain skills and develop ways to fix things. All the things, whether it be toilets or electricity or the need for saving the earth from, the ozone. The great big hole, yeah. And so all of those influences are all based on the working out of a plan by the new group of world servers. And if we're already at a point, and if you look at, just go to YouTube, stop looking at TV and go to YouTube and just go, electric cars of the year 2020. And it'll go, there are 30 electric cars coming out in the year 2020. Well, that's got to be a shocker to you if you have empathy. if your solar plex is already dead, and your heart's asleep, and your solar plex is like overwhelmed by life itself, and it's just like, you know, you can't get that excited by much of anything other than I woke up today and I'm still alive, you know? But life is something to get excited about, yeah? Check these things out, because that's what you're going to be driving, whether you're in this body or in your next body. And if you can see it and get a little heartfelt tingle inside yourself, you know, that this is you, this is part of you. This is not outside of you. This isn't a bunch of billionaires who could do this in a lavish lifestyle, because the future is that this is handed down to every living person. So all the things you're going to see when you look at this YouTube thing, you're going to see the future of humanity being worked out from poverty all the way to the point of our safety, our health, our education, going to college costing nothing, because there are no physical colleges anymore. Yeah? There are lab groups, places you go to in a lab, and you study with the finest minds of people that just get a kick out of what they're doing, and you're all the same, and you go to that place. Yeah? And you can all collectively do 1,000 things inside that group. And it's not, oh, I got to go to Harvard, I got to learn history, I got to learn this, I got to do all that. You know, that's too, way out there. Yeah? And then it lends you to think, oh, I got to pay them $100,000 to get through this thing. Yeah, because I'm going to Harvard and they're providing the best education there could possibly be. And that's not true. The best education comes from the students who are already educated, highly skilled. They're getting A's already in class. They should be teaching the class. And then you don't have to pay shit to any of the professors, because the students don't need any money. Does that make sense? Yeah? Now do this at home, online. Yeah? And with the new technologies that we have, we can all sit in a forum, in a class, sitting with our little helmet on, looking through our little eyeglasses, and we're looking around, and the person who's in, Ethiopia is sitting next to you in a seat. You just look over there. He's sitting next to you in a seat, And another person is sitting right in front of you, and they're from Burbank, in real live time. Everybody's in class, but everybody's sitting in a home. Yeah, does that make sense? And this costs you nothing, because it's all coming from that little internet thing. Yeah, it costs you maybe $10 a year. Yeah, because there's much more in the service realm that is generated from that than there ever can be from the advertisement realm of having us buy shit and waste our time. Yeah, so that's the way economy is going to go. The new technologies and the advancements that we're having are all going to move through sharing. Yeah, because we care whether or not, in the end, you're going to have this great big indebtedness, and you're never going to pay it. And you're just going to walk around feeling guilty and that you're a social misfit who's taken advantage of society, and yet you're educated and yet you can't get a job. None of it worked. Totally bad. You got a $90,000 loan. You're only 22 years old. We got to get rid of all that in order to allow the soul to incarnate. Because the soul can't incarnate under those pressures. People are totally crazy if they think they can be in that situation and everybody else is in a state of poverty and richness and all this kind of stuff is going on. And it's not until we all take a look, become consciously aware through consciousness, and then all of a sudden we all walk out of our great big ass houses and sell those things to people who are a little lower, a little less confident, a little less secure, and need that great big house. And you just let it go. Then you moved to your $30,000 home that is in the forest with your electric car and your solar grid, and you got it made. Yeah? And you're living well on $600 or $700 a month. Living really well. Yeah? You have no mortgage, you have nothing. Your electricity's paid and your car doesn't cost you any gas. It can last you pretty much the rest of your life. All you got to do is just settle down. Don't go through the process that this has got to be bigger than it is. It could be really small, and you can be incredibly satisfied once you get rid of it. Does that make sense? Because I believe everybody should focus on retirement. That's what I'm teaching today. Focus on extremely early retirement. Okay, so let's do our meditation. Hope that helps somebody. Okay. Okay, just relax. I'm going to do the invocation, and then I'm going to do angels of heaven and earth become one. So we're going to do about 20 minutes of Om. So just stay focused during that time and keep your eyes closed. Okay, just repeat after me. I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad. To guide me into the right activity in the plan. To clarify and stimulate my mind. To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions. To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body. So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body. Through this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One. All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, just relax. Okay, open your eyes. So, as I was explaining, the process of healing this planet is a spontaneous act. Yeah? I'm watching the news. Cuba's got missiles. We've got a new president. He needs help. I start meditating. What do? I need to see more. I need to verify. So it comes on the news. Yeah? Literally showing us that there are missiles. And the president's willing to show that. And that's just what I needed to know, because I immediately went into full meditation. I wouldn't meditate. It really triggered too much in me. I could levitate, I could begin dematerializing, I could do all kinds of really crazy stuff while meditating. I don't know what's going on while I'm meditating. Yeah. So I do that. I go off in my bedroom, I put a nice sheet around me, and I start meditating. And what do? I ask for this. I ask for that. A telescope. Yeah, why would I ask for a telescope? Because those missiles need to be used for something else. And no one's got that in their mind yet. So I need to teach the man who's making the missile, a man called Wernher von Braun. And I knew his name because I was studying this stuff. Studying rockets and studying the Apollo and studying Mercury and studying everything that went on, including the Sputnik and the Russian relationship to going into space. So I knew that we had a Russian, a German, who was working with that same group that defected and came to America and is helping us build ours. But inside of him, he wants to go to the moon. He doesn't want to make missiles to make bombs and kill people. Yeah? He's a visionary. He's one of the group. Yeah? So I focus on these people. And we began developing NASA. And the president says, I will put a man on the moon, you know? Instead of, let's go on to war and let's make more nuclear, I'm going to put a man on the moon, which means we got to put a lot of money and energy into using missiles for a different strategy. World peace. Yeah, the possibility of all of us going and developing spaceships like Russia and going on to a space station, which we would then be at an international space station, which is in the mind of the president, because that's in my mind. These are going to be our answers. We're going to create world peace by bringing together science and technologies at the highest minds, and will overshadow the governments that are developing misuse of money, greed, monopoly, politics, all the things that were going on, and just was moved into a whole stratosphere of world peace. Yeah. So just doing this, just actively creating a process for that. And then later on, when we get to what are we going to do with this electric car thing, I create the electric car business. No one's got an electric car business. Ford just crushed it. GM just crushed it. No one's interested in, like myself, putting out a sign and saying, I'm going to build electric cars, and these electric cars are going to go 400 miles. At the time, they're going 40 miles. All electric cars couldn't go beyond 40 to 60 miles. But this crazy guy comes out, puts a sign up saying, I'm going to open up an electric car company and we're going to go 400 miles. Yep. Yeah. And I'm going to charge it in 15 minutes. What kind of crazy idiot would say such a thing? But look at today. Look at where we're going to be in the next 10 years, 5 years. Have a car that gets 400 miles. It'll charge it in 15 minutes. And it's all coming from me. Because nothing in me goes, I don't know, I think I'll hold off and maybe do this another time. Nothing in me does that. If you know me, I am the most hard-headed person you will ever meet. Yeah? When I'm asked to do something, I won't stop until I've completed it perfectly. And once I've completed it, I'm done. Now I'll go on to something else. But you got to watch out, because anybody who asks me to do anything, you'll find out 2 seconds later I'm already doing it. I'm busy off sweeping, doing whatever I'm doing, getting a wrench or fixing something or working out how to fix it. Because that's service. That's how we respond. The ability to respond is our only human characteristic. Yeah? And we're thought form building by being in service. Yeah? So if anybody says anything like that, the only thing you have in this world is yourself to share. So you literally got to go do it. You can't. You don't feel like, I'm going to call someone else, or I'm going to go do this. Or I have the ability to know someone else who can do this, and this would be the best thing to do. Yeah. Those kind of services are the influences that move through the new group of world servers. Yeah. So imagine we had Vietnam, and we had a really hostile scenario of a whole bunch of people going crazy, burning their draft cards, and, getting violent, and, the military were shooting them at Kent State, and, everybody thought it was something other than what it is, and it was suppressed intellect, suppressed enlightenment, and there was no way for these people to express outwardly, so I had to join the military. Imagine that. I literally had to sit in the military in the middle of the Vietnam War and be a protester in the military. Try doing that. Try being a Buddhist conscientious objector who will not leave the state of California, even though I have no legal right to tell you anything. You once you sign that contract, they say you go to Vietnam, you're on the boat on the day they say. And you're there as long as they say. And you're going to do what they say. Well, I don't have that mind. I'm spontaneous, I'm like, no, Mr. Custer, I don't want to go. You know what I mean? You know? The process of knowing you're just going to go over there and get shot. Something very wise kind of tells you no. And you're willing to go through anything to not go. You know? Well, that in itself is standing up against, everything that is what it is. And yet nobody knew how to do it. They didn't really know how to do it. That what you needed to do was join the military and then say no. Not on the outside. Doesn't work. Well, yeah, they'll beat you up. They'll throw you out windows. They'll leave you for dead 3 times. That happened to me. But I'm still alive. I'm still walking on both feet, and I made it through it. But the war ended 3 months after I ended my service. So that's a very effective service, a way of doing service. And it makes a big difference in the world. So that spontaneous interactive relationship, making change, just like the electric car. People can go, well, I'll try and buy an electric car and it'll make a world difference. What if Christ gets involved in this? Christ the Magi gets involved. Goes in and says, banking system not good. All of a sudden, banking system is found not to be good. And it's corrupt. And it's ruining the lives of everyone. And even the poorest countries have banks that's ripping off the country. That's what's doing it. It's the banks. The banks create the shell, situations. The banks create these horrible people in Africa and other places that are ruling the world with all their abilities to rule through the bank. Because they're given millions and billions of dollars from the bank and maintain that leverage. And the banks are just allowing it to happen. So all of this, this process that we've got going on is changed, through the reality of transfiguration. It's a matter of stepping into it. So we have processes in the world where everybody's worried about human rights, but no one really knows the effect of what's causing our lack of human rights. It's perversion. Whether it be perversion to steal your money, to lie to you, to call you on the phone and tell you this is the IRS, to scam you, to scare the crap out of you, not caring whether you're a kid or an old person, they're heartless, and not everybody's like that. But it's being expressed, and it's being expressed because we have this weakness. But we're not going to have this weakness in 5 years. Everybody, all the assholes in the world can try and sell you a bad car. Inside you, you're going to know. Does that make sense? Some spiritual inclination of the angel that exists is going to tap you on the shoulder. And just say, get the hell out of here. This is a con job. Because by that time, you can just go on YouTube and say, what is the real price of this car? And it's going to go, watch out, scams everywhere. People are ripping you off. You should just buy it this way. You get it $15,000, $20,000 less, and you won't have all these extra added, It's better to look. That's wisdom. It's better to be spontaneous. And in 5 years, all of our consciousness is going to grow. Where we're less sensitive to those things now, and we're more sensitive to the point to where we literally eradicate the ability for that to exist. Con people can exist, but they're just going to sit poor in a chair trying to rip people off and not get away with shit and find themselves in jail quickly. Does that make sense? And people who are not meant to go to jail aren't going to be going to jail. The whole system, we have enormous killing and murder and all kinds of terrible, terrible things that go on because we have perversion under the scene that doesn't get busted. Priests and other people that don't get busted. And only the people who are the murderers and the drug addicts and the drunks and the derelicts go to prison. And yet the people that put them that way, made them that way, don't go to prison. 5 years, that's going to change dramatically. Does that make sense? So put your faith in what I'm talking about. The Lord has power over this world. And this world, it's a matter of spontaneity. It's not a matter of control. It's a matter of spontaneity. And in just the next 10 years, getting to the year 2030, we have a lot to go through because we have to deal with perversion. This is the 10-year of perversion clear, And there's a lot of perversion going on. A lot. Children, people, places. It's why we think we don't have human rights. Why we think that there's something wrong, that men are overthrowing women and women don't have power and they're subjected to this terrible life. It's just an imperil that's placed upon us. And we really have no clear picture of its causal. What causes it? And that's being weeded out by the Christ. The influence of getting these people to be caught and getting people to a conscious level of actually knowing they exist and having the angelic principles come in to grab people and say, okay, yeah, you did it right, yes, okay, yeah, off to jail with you, Mr. Pope. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what position they hold, The main thing is stop the perversion because that's the causal. It's the causal. We can't make laws and say, you can't be this or that, you can't behave like this, But we have to raise our consciousness, so we can discern and discriminate and catch the people with our angelic ways. Does that make sense? We catch them in a net, and they have no way of surviving through it other than redemption. They're to be saved. They're suffering a lot more than you are, even though they're the ones ripping you off and making your life a holy hell. They're going to come back that way. You're not. You have a lot easier road being the victim. I don't want victims, but trust me, even though you might have been a victim, you're nothing compared to the person who did it to you. And that's going to pay big time. It has to have an individual repent. It has to have that. And since you're not the one who did it, imagine how that's going to affect, like Michael Jackson. There was no repenting, so he had to go that way. And that's going to go life after life after life after life. And it's going to be our education. Oh, I didn't know he was Hitler. I didn't know he was a child molester. But your wisdom will give you the keys to God. It'll allow you to see. You'll unveil things. You'll see things that are written. You'll see things that have been covered up. You'll find things that no one would ever tell you because they felt obligated to keep it covered. There's only 2 kids who's come forth to say Michael Jackson molested them. There are hundreds that were molested. So we still have a good period of time for all this to come about. Because it is important. It's important so that we don't have that lower consciousness that allows them to walk into court and humiliate little children, con them into going on the stand and lying, and let that demon walk away and go do it some more. And then make a movie saying he's Hitler. Wow. We cannot go that low again in our consciousness. Does that make sense? It's consciousness. And until your consciousness is raised, nothing I could do to save you. I have to raise your consciousness in order for you to be saved. And then you'll save yourself. Does that make sense? Because we're going to make decisions like, we're not buying a $100,000 house. 32. That's it. 32. 32. Guess what? They're going to make you a really nice $32,000 house. And they're going to figure out how to do it. Because you're going to set the standard. Consciousness allows you to discern, discriminate, and know that in 1952 they sold houses for $17,000. Wood didn't cost that much more. Copper doesn't cost that much more. Wiring doesn't cost that much more. Yeah? Yeah? And assembling them doesn't cost that much more because it only took a week or two. You know? So $17,000 was a good amount of money, and a lot of people got paid well. So just jump that up to $32,000 with price of living and all that, you know. You've got yourself the price of a house. A 2 to 3 bedroom house with a nice kitchen, 2 baths, you know. Absolutely, positively can happen. We just have to discern, discriminate, and not think, okay, I'll accept a rundown chicken shack that I will renovate, that I will then pay $1,200 a month for. You know, as long as you don't have, if you can get rid of your poverty consciousness and take on Christ consciousness, you'll find yourself in a really nice $32,000 house and not a chicken shack. But the assholes out there today will sell you a chicken shack. Yeah? And make you feel guilty and stupid for even thinking you should deserve a brand new $32,000 house with appliances. Solar, everything included. By the year 2025, batteries will be so cheap, solar will be so cheap. The mechanistic way of building a house and having it just pop together in an hour and a half cuts down an enormous amount of $20 an hour for people, bum, 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 bum. And you can buy these houses on Amazon for $32,000. Free delivery. Yeah, all you got to do is get someone to build it. I mean, these things are happening, yeah? You know, so it's all about our consciousness, yeah? And same with cars. They got cars that, you know, give us a Tesla car. Oh, yeah, got to charge you $90,000 for that. He builds the same car just 8 years later and charges $35,000 for it. What, is he giving them away? How's that possible? Batteries cost less, you know? Now that you're making $150,000 a year in cars, they cost a lot less. But when you're making 30,000 cars, they're going to cost you $80,000 to make. And then you only make $12,000 when you sell it. Yeah? They were relatively honest people in the process of putting these things out. So if this continues, it'll be much like a computer. You know, the software goes faster, the computer becomes cheaper. We'll be buying computers, you know, just like our watches and our telephones. Computers will come out for about $150 in the very best quality you'll ever get because they can't do much more to them. And it gets cheaper and cheaper to make them. And the battery lasts for like 2 months, you know. And, you know, you can charge your phone on it. You can do all this stuff because the batteries in the future are so magnificent and powerful that they store and never get hot. And they just store, and they charge in a matter of minutes. And they last for weeks, you know. So easy to use it as a charging point, you know, for all your other things. Yeah. That cuts your costs down even more. Yeah. So everything that we're doing, everything in our consciousness comes from this overwhelming delusion around cost. You know, computers cost this much, a $90,000 electric car costs $90,000. By the year 2025, electric cars will cost $22,000. On an average, $22,000. And you'll get 300 to 500 miles if you go to maybe $30,000 because the batteries will be more. But when you do that, you get a car that is so amazing. Then you go another 5 years and it's on a share program. Now you're only paying $200 a month. Do this 12 times. Yeah? You'll see that's a very small amount of money because it includes insurance. Because you don't need insurance because you don't own the car, but you're insured while you're in the car. Does that make sense? So you're not paying for it. It's part of that $200. And your car is upgraded. And next year comes out, whoa, wow, this thing's levitating. Wow, we're under tunnels now. Because that'll be the future. Within less than 5 years, Elon Musk will be putting tunnels throughout the United States. The Boring Company. It will start boring holes and tunnels that are 1/3 the size of normal tunnels. 1/3 the size. And then you go down inside and you get on this lift that your car goes into and travels like 150, 200 miles an hour inside this thing. And you go all the way down to LA for $15. And it took you 3 hours to get there, 2 hours to get there, as it goes faster and faster as technology has advanced. Yeah? So there's less and less and less about our future that we can't visualize, that we can't see. Yeah? We can't know is going to happen, And since we're coming out of everything being money, like all the billionaires that are out there and the millionaires who are out there and the cost of living and everything's about money. But the future, everything will not be about money. Yeah, it'll be how much things don't cost anything, and how the cost of living has gone down to be 1/10 of what it was in the year 2015. As time keeps going on, we look at these charts and we go, whoa. The cost of living is 1/3 every few years, less than what it was before. Yeah, and that's all in process of sharing and caring. The housing process, $30,000. A car, free. Your electricity, your insurance, all the things that we are working for. All of a sudden, they go away in the sharing program. Yeah. And that way, when we get to be 60 years old, and we get to this point where we get to 2030, we have medical programs that are set for everybody, allows everybody to be taken care of without a cost to it. Because we're so financially lucrative. We're not wasting money in all the ways that we do now. The economy gets growing so much that we have an enormous excess. And that excess goes into what we would be paying for if we went to insurance. Because now we're not building colleges, we don't have to build schools. It's all done for less, and we're not building dams, and we're not building all these other infrastructures like nuclear power plants, where gazillions of dollars would go off to that. We're not going to war. So billions of dollars goes off to that. So every time those things change into being no longer necessary, it becomes the externalization of the new group of world servers. And the masses of every living person on the planet is a new group of world server. So everything, as we move through it, every single thing gets connected. Where before, due to a lack of discernment and discrimination, we'd be based on whether or not we can fit in to make it that far. Can we get to college? Can we get to a skill? Can we learn technology? Can we keep the advancements moving? But all of humanity has moved all the advancements to the point to where we can now look at the year 2030 and see that as the period of sharing, which is a completely different consciousness. I mean, even me talking about it leaves everybody in, just wonder, does that mean we're going to all be poor? No credit cards? Do I have a stock markets exchange? Is there any kind of, what's the value of living? Oh, wow, I don't even know how to think about this. Yeah? Because we have no classification for where we're going, in this process of materialism. And we're being provided things so cheaply, and we don't have to work so much to get it. That all the new things get updated instead of having to buy new ones, like the phones. We can keep an iPhone for a long time because the iPhone could be updated. We can keep a car for a long time because the car can be updated. So all of its potential could be finally unlocked after a 10-year period, because that's the way the design is going to be made. The process of it is so much greater than the apps and the things that we're going to put into it. And we could do that right now. It's just that we allow it to be less technologically complete so that in 5 years we can add that to it and sell it. So we can make an iPhone 11, an iPhone 10, iPhone 12 about every year. Yeah. But if we were to get to a point which we're going to get to in the next couple of years, to where we're so advanced in this, we have to leap way ahead because all the apps and the software aren't going to be drawing what it is that these have potentials to do. So we're going to have to just do updates on those devices, and that way you can't continue selling them, like the cars and all that. And by the year 2030, nearly every car and truck will be the same chassis. Yeah? Same part system, same kind of motors, same systems in it, and just have certain technological ways of artistically expressing themselves as BMW or this and that. That'll give you their design. But overall, you can go into any shop and they can lift that body right off and get right to the chassis and be able to swap it out, using other company parts. And that cuts the cost down dramatically. And it increases advancements overnight across the board. Rather than this company being advanced for 3 years while this company's trying to figure out a way to get to that, they're all being moved up at the same time. And that's through the sharing program. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, so that's it. That's all for today. Thanks a lot.